All right, still here with me in the studio, Philip Dubé, also with me, David Bruno. David, I want to start with you. At the end of the day, for this particular defendant, this is going to be all about appeals. We've got the guilty verdict. I don't know what the result of the death penalty phase will be, but clearly there will be appeals. Do you see any issues? I thought there might be some issues with hearsay in this case. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, if you're talking about the victim statements, that is always troublesome. And believe it or not, courts and states are not aligned. There are states that prohibit victims' statements unless they're during the pendency of the death itself. A dying declaration would be the exception. But here they did admit statements of the victim to another saying, well, if I'm or strike that, you know, I'm actually confusing the cases, but hearsay, it's got to be substantial, Michael. If there's a problem with hearsay, it's got to be substantial to be reversed. Yeah, and again, it's about all the other evidence as well, and I think the totality of the evidence was certainly there, at least as far as I'm concerned. But speaking of the victim, Philip, I would be remiss if I didn't point out, you know, the feelings I have about this particular victim and what she went through in her life. Now, as a defense attorney, and you saw the defense attorneys in this case, they had to bring some of that stuff up, perhaps trying to insinuate maybe some promiscuity, certainly some precociousness, things along that line as part of their defense. But at the end of the day, this was a young girl, a teenager, who had sex with two older men in that area, just unprotected by her family. At least that's the way it seemed to me, victimized by some of the older people in that area. And, you know, you just have to feel for a young lady like that, who, by all accounts, seemed to be bright and doing well in school.
Yeah, she had a warped sense of feeling like she was loved and belonged, if you will. Yeah. And to confuse avuncular love with lewd and lascivious type romance is, again, it's another form of warped sense of feeling like you're a wanted child, you know? But shame on him if he in fact did that, because he took advantage of a vulnerable kid who had that sense of need and want, if you will. And rather than try to help her, you know, get her on the road to finding the right people in her life, the right resources, you know, and embracing her in a non-lascivious way, he preyed on her. Yes. You know, and that's the tragic part about it. Now, having said that, I still believe in my heart it does not prove murder, you know? And I think they're going to have issues on appeal in substantiating this verdict when you don't have evidence of each element independent of his statement. And all of that hearsay that came in, clearly it violates the Crawford doctrine about testimonial hearsay coming in for its truth.
Fair enough, but I will say some of that hearsay did come in, David, to the state of mind of the defendant. There were conversations he had with Iyana, but more so than anything else, when I think about this particular case, you know, the evidence may not have been there in terms of they relied a lot on his statement, but I thought the circumstantial evidence then turned around and supported the statement. So, for instance, we talk about the murder with a gun, right? And the jury found that as an aggravating factor. Well, they didn't have the actual body, but they had what he did after with the gun. He went and shot a gun. So there was this circumstantial evidence, and you treat it as building blocks.
Sure, circumstantial evidence sometimes could be more powerful than direct evidence. It's in our jury charge in our state, and certainly, I mean, I think the defense did a good job. But again, the relationship was problematic, and its strong motive, especially with the pregnancy. Pregnancy, the victim was a minor, the familial relationship, this individual was older, and there's a relationship of trust when we talk. That's why this is so egregious. This is why it is motive. He's supposed to be there for her, not doing the things he did.
Yeah, there was no way to get around that fact either. Just no way. All right, it's time for us to take a break.